health is your responsibility. This message was brought to you by the Ministry of Health, St. Kitts.
There are signs everywhere. Pay attention whether you're male or female. Visit your health center to get screened. It's a preliminary test to determine if you are exposed to the HIV virus, an STI, or tuberculosis. Some people who are HIV positive also have tuberculosis. But there's hope. Tuberculosis can be cured. And yes, you can live a full life with HIV. Talk to your doctor. Be responsible. Help stop the spread of TB, HIV. Encourage everyone to get tested.
If you're HIV positive or have an STI, having unprotected sex with multiple partners puts them in grave danger. You will expose every partner and their present and future partners to HIV or another STI. Use a condom every time you have sex. You can live a productive life even if diagnosed with HIV. Remember, early detection is key to your survival. Be responsible, protect yourself and others. Help stop the spread of HIV and other STIs.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I present Team COVID-19. Step into the mic in the studio is Dr. Laws, our beloved CMO, Medical Chief of Staff, Dr. Wilkinson, and Mr. Lesroy Williams. Team COVID-19 on the front line, coming to you in Calypso rhyme. So sit back, relax, and listen to what they have to say and the role they want you to play. Easy!
Early in January this year, our federation woke up in fear because a little virus out there in Wuhan was slowly making its way to our land. They say its name was SARS Corona, and our lives it planned to devour. So we're here to come up quickly with a little plan to save our beautiful nation.
They want, then plan they will get. Because of people's lives we have to protect. Close down the airport and send back them big tourist ships so we could focus on this pandemic. Mr. MCS, I'm begging you please, as I pray to God from down on my knees. Now let's get all our hospitals and staff in order to battle this corona.
Madam COO, I hear you loud and clear. We will win this fight, don't worry, don't fear. I'll sound the alarm and get all hands on deck. This war we will win and our people protect. To win this war we must flatten the curve, but don't overwhelm the nurses and doctors. Personal responsibility you must take indeed if we are to succeed.
Cover your mouth, we say cover
your nose. This will stop the spread to those who are close. Lock yourself inside during the curfew. Under quarantine, to thine own self be true. Wash from your elbows down to your hands. With soap and water, it's a simple plan. If you follow these simple instructions daily, from this virus we'll soon be free. Easy!
By now I know what you're thinking, but I only assisted with the recording. This song is not my composition, but brought to me by Dr. Wilkinson. Between Hillis Roy and the CMO, they've come up with this great KISO. So after whipping COVID-19 behind, there'll be Sugar Mass 49. Easy!
Thanks to the nation's unified response, the spread of COVID-19 has been contained. St. Kitts and Nevis proudly announces the opening of their border on October 31st, 2020. The success of this strategy requires effort on everyone's part.
As long as the recommended precautions are taken, you can go about your daily life with immense peace of mind.
Everyone is encouraged to adopt a healthy and positive approach to daily life. Here are a few friendly reminders.
When you go to the local market and food vendors, remember to maintain a social distance of 6 feet or 2 meters apart. And always wear your mask.
Always keep your hands clean. Wash your hands with soap and water or use an alcohol-based hand sanitizer. When dining, choose restaurants with staggered seating. This will lower the risk of transmission.
If you have a fever, cough, or other respiratory symptoms, please wear a mask and seek medical care immediately. Rest at home and do not visit the food vendors, local markets, or restaurants.
Together, we can create
a safe environment
and embrace
a border reopening lifestyle.
Thanks to the nation's unified response, the spread of COVID-19 has been contained. St. Kitts and Nevis, therefore, announces the opening of their border on October 31st, 2020. The success of this strategy requires effort on everyone's part. People from all walks of life must keep practicing social distancing. Maintain a separation of 6 feet or 2 meters indoors and 3 to 4 feet or 1 meter outdoors. If this isn't possible, masks must be properly worn. Businesses can provide hand sanitizer, conduct temperature checks, record customers' contact information, and manage crowds. Clean and sanitize high-touch areas regularly. Dividers or staggered seating can be used to maintain proper social distance. This protects workers and customers and prevents the spread of disease. We all have an individual and collective responsibility to avoid large social gatherings. These types of gatherings are deemed as super spreader events. Taking disease prevention seriously will enable a worry-free return to normal life.
Is on.
Good day and welcome. This is the post-cabinet briefing. Sorry, not the post-cabinet briefing, the weekly briefing. My apologies, for the National Emergency Operations Center COVID-19 for today, Wednesday, the 10th of February, 2021. I thank you very much for joining us for our briefing today. As usual, we continue to update you on what is happening in St. Kitts and Nevis with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic and its management. Of course, we hear that there have been so many deaths from COVID-19, over 2 million deaths worldwide from the COVID-19 itself. But sometimes what we do not hear is the depression, the suicides, and so on that the pandemic has caused. And there are people suffering with tremendous mental problems because of lockdowns, loss of jobs, and so on. And these people we have to remember and be compassionate. They need our solidarity. Today I want to invite, firstly, Superintendent Cromwell Henry, Divisional Commander for District A, to bring us his report. Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. A pleasant good afternoon to all listening to this broadcast by whatever means. Today I will speak to you on funerals and weddings. I have chosen to speak on this topic, this subject matter, because of concerns expressed by the Commissioner of Police about the non-compliance with the COVID-19 protocols at these gatherings, in particularly at funerals. We understand that funerals are a time for mourning the loss of a loved one, and they are necessary. However, the virus does not respect the occasion, and persons not taking precaution are at risk, even at a funeral. The COVID-19 Act sets out the protocols to be followed at funerals and weddings. Section 11 states, a person may attend a funeral except that the funeral shall have a maximum duration not exceeding 1 hour. The seating arrangements shall allow for a minimum of 6 feet between persons, and distance markers must indicate where each person must sit. The total number of persons that may be permitted to attend inside of the building is 1 person for every 30 square feet. That is 6 feet by 5 feet. Similar protocols apply for weddings. We are asking that funeral undertakers, wedding planners, pastors, and other church leaders pay particular attention to these protocols that are stipulated by law and ensure that these services are compliant with the laws as they are intended to prevent the spread of the virus. In addition to the physical distancing protocol, the venue must be sanitized prior to the service, and persons entering or attending must have their hands sanitized, and every person must wear a face mask for the duration of the event. Remember, the same protocols apply for weddings. Persons attending weddings must wear face masks, they must have sanitization before and during the ceremony. And if you're having a reception after the wedding, that must seek a permission from the Commissioner of Police. We therefore recommend that persons go to the website police.kn and make application to host your wedding ceremony and reception. Remember, the protocols apply for these events, notwithstanding that you may consider them religious events. The virus do not discriminate, and you are at the same risk if you do not follow the protocols. So follow good hand hygiene sanitization practices, wear your face mask, and maintain your social distancing at all times. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Henry. I now invite our Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Hazel Laws, to present us with the Health Emergency Operations Center Situation Report. Dr. Laws.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, and a bright good afternoon to everyone who has tuned in this afternoon. My task is, as per usual, to share with you the Health Emergency Operating Center's Situation Report for today, Wednesday, February 10, 2021. Alright, so what's the status, COVID-19 status in the Federation? So far, the Federation would have reported 40 confirmed cases of COVID-19, 28 St. Kitts, 12 Nevis. And at present, 38 of these cases would have recovered fully. We have 2 active cases. They are being monitored, and for now they are stable. Between last year, January to present, over 106.6 million persons have been confirmed with this disease. Over 2.3 million deaths have occurred globally. 27.2 million confirmed cases are in the United States of America alone. And in terms of the death toll, the United States have reported over 469,000 deaths so far. What's happening in the Caribbean region, and so amongst the CARICOM member states, collectively, the territories have reported over 484,000 confirmed cases and over 7,000 deaths. What's happening closer home? So in our neighboring islands, for example, Antigua and Barbuda have reported 316 cases so far with 8 deaths. Barbados, 1,732 cases, 18 deaths. St. Lucia, 2,027 cases, 19 deaths. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, 1,324 cases, 4 deaths. Just by way of update, we would have repatriated another batch of 147 students attending the Ross University School of Veterinary Medicine. And these students, they returned 2 weeks ago, 2 Wednesdays ago. So at present, they are awaiting their results. So today is day 14 of 14. They would have completed 14 days of quarantine. Their samples would have been taken this morning, and so their samples are being processed and they are awaiting their results prior to official discharge from quarantine once the results have come back negative. So far, in the Federation, 8,521 persons have been tested. They've received the RT-PCR test with a 0.4% positivity rate. So at present, we have over 342 persons in quarantine, 23 in home quarantine, and as I said before, we have 2 active cases, and so these cases are in isolation. 38 of our cases have fully recovered. All right, and so I just wanted to remind us that there are at least 3 SARS-CoV-2 variants of public health concern. So these variants have emerged and they are spreading wildly. And so in terms of the variant that was identified in the United Kingdom, this variant have been identified in a number of Caribbean territories so far, at least 5 Caribbean territories so far. And so we have to be vigilant, and our aim is to keep these variants at bay for as long as we possibly can. So I want to update you regarding access to the COVID-19 vaccines. And so we keep sharing repeatedly that the Federation has signed on to the COVAX facility, which is a global mechanism. It's developed to help participating member states gain access to the COVID-19 vaccines. And so I think almost all CARICOM member states have signed on to this global mechanism. And so towards the end of January, the Federation received a very promising letter from the Office of the COVAX facility, providing us good information regarding the first tranche of the assigned COVID-19 vaccines to satisfy the COVAX's agreement with the Federation. And so we were informed that we would be allocated a number of doses of the AstraZeneca and Oxford vaccine. Our allocation amounts to about 21,600 doses, and so this amount will provide coverage for approximately 20% of our population. So the letter went on to state that the start date for delivery can be as early as mid to late February. However, there were some conditions. The specific date of delivery would be dependent on the WHO emergency use listing approval process and some other steps which include our own implementation of our vaccination plan and our regulatory preparedness. It specified that about 25 to 35% of the amount will be supplied in the first quarter and about 65 to 75% in the second quarter. Now, just a little bit more about the AstraZeneca Oxford vaccine, which we will be expecting. The data from the clinical trial suggests that it offers there's about a 62% efficacy. Clinical trials have since found that the vaccine had an efficacy of about 82% when 2 doses, when the first shot and the second shot was separated by about an 8 to 12 week period. Now, again, this vaccine requires your receiving 2 doses. The vaccine is expected to last for at least 6 months when it is stored in a normal, regular refrigerator. And so that's important because the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine would require us having a refrigerator that would, cool the samples down to negative 80 degrees. The Moderna vaccine would require a refrigerator that will cool the vials down to as low as negative 20 degrees. Now, it is not yet known how long protection will last having received this or any of the other vaccines. So this is a bit of information that will come to the fore after this vaccine has been rolled out across the globe. Data is collected on a daily basis, and so I'm thinking within short order this bit of information or this data gap will be filled. Now, we read in the Financial Times today that the World Health Organization Strategic Advisory Group of Experts on Immunization, the SAGE group, they discussed this vaccine at length, and they recommended that it can be used worldwide by all adults, even elderly. The vaccine could be used by all people over the age of 18 years in all countries. The WHO recommends an interval of about 8 to 12 weeks between the doses. It has been shown that the 2-dose efficacy and immunogenicity increase with a longer interdose interval. Now, preliminary evidence on this vaccine, the one that we are expecting through the COVAX facility, it shows that it's effective against the variant first identified in the United Kingdom. So that's good news. Now, Oxford University and AstraZeneca have said that they expect this vaccine to protect against the more severe disease and death caused by the variant that was first identified in South Africa. This is also reassuring, because preliminary data a few days ago found that from a trial that was conducted in South Africa last week, that the vaccine had reduced efficacy against mild and moderate disease caused by the variant first identified in South Africa. So what they are saying is that it provides you protection against severe, moderate to severe disease. So that's reassuring. The World Health Organization is expected to issue an emergency use listing for this vaccine as early as this coming Monday. And this is important because the COVAX facility can only distribute vaccines that have achieved World Health Organization emergency use listing. And so once this happens, we should be hopeful in terms of expecting our allocation coming out of the COVAX facility. The Federation is seeking access to COVID-19 vaccines through 2 other mechanisms. And so we are not putting all our eggs in one basket. We are trying through all possible avenues to access COVID-19 vaccines. Access to the COVID-19 vaccine is crucial to curbing the spread of COVID-19 infections and restarting our economy and economies in the region and globally. It's very, very important, given the fact that we have the emergence of new variants and the possibility of them reaching our shores. It's important for us to continue adhering to the prevention and control measures, wearing the face mask, very, very important. As a matter of fact, the latest information coming out is that wearing 2 masks, yes, double masks, is going to provide you that additional protection against the new variants. So yes, prior to this we advocated 1 mask, but the science and the latest information is suggesting that with the emergence of these new variants, you may have to wear 2 masks, because these new variants are associated with increased transmissibility. So in other words, there's an increased risk of spreading this virus to many other persons, and these variants are associated with reinfection, and the variant first identified in the United Kingdom is associated with an increased risk of death. And so persons who are living in the countries where these variants were first identified, I see pictures of them wearing double masks, 2 masks. So what they do is they wear the surgical mask, the first layer, and then they put on or wear a cloth mask over the surgical mask. So it's important for us to wear our face masks, because that's going to provide us that additional protection from the variants. Maintaining adequate hand hygiene, very, very important. And sanitation, meaning, sanitizing those high-touch surfaces, door handles, tabletops, countertops, etc. Very important. Maintaining physical distance of at least 3 to 6 feet between individuals and avoiding crowds. These are the measures, along with the vaccines, that's going to help us to get through this pandemic, help us to get through 2021 and the pandemic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Laws, for your presentation, especially about the vaccines, which are very important. Vaccines are important, but vaccinations are more important, because we can have the vaccine, but yet people are not willing to be vaccinated, and that is what we want. These are the questions for today. The first question is from Shamika Budgeon from Vaughan Radio. We must applaud the government on the travel ban that is currently in place to further protect the citizens of St. Kitts and Nevis from the new COVID variant and COVID on a whole. With that said, what is the status on the incident that took place with the COVID case that breached quarantine and caught a passenger bus in St. Kitts? Will that individual be charged with criminal intent and also a fine? Also, what is the status with the other individuals that were involved in the incident?
Thank you, Leslie, for the question. Now, we've said here before that the places where persons are quarantined, they are not maximum security prison facilities. And so, from time to time, we may have breaches. What is good is that we have a system in place, so whenever there is a breach, we can adequately contain the breach. In other words, identify where the breach was and do the necessary contact tracing. As it relates to the specific case that you're speaking about, yes, there was a breach, the details of which I cannot go into. The persons, however, did not travel on a passenger bus. They traveled on a vehicle, but it's not a passenger bus where other passengers would have been in the bus to create exposure. And I can reassure the public that everyone who came into possible contact, they were identified and quarantined. And so we did the necessary contact tracing. And I don't think that there is going to be any criminal charges that will be brought against these persons. As I said, it was a breach. Sometimes breaches can come because of misjudgment, etc., and not necessarily any direct criminal intent.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilkinson. The second question has to do with vaccines. And the question is India is distributing 500,000 AstraZeneca vaccines to the Caribbean. And there was a news release regarding India's High Commissioner to Guyana. Having discussions with St. Kitts and Nevis about receiving vaccines. Can the task force verify if this is so? And if it is, can we expect vaccines from India in the near future? Dr. Wilkinson.
Now, one of the things that we said very early was that St. Kitts and Nevis was one of the countries to sign on very early to the COVAX facility, and the COVAX facility will guarantee us vaccines for 20% of the population. And the CMO in her presentation just mentioned that COVAX contacted us, and hopefully we'll be getting these supplies within this first quarter and the latter part of the next quarter. And so we have to be very grateful for that. She also said that we are working on other avenues to get vaccines, because one of the things we are looking at is coverage for at least 70% of the population. And so those other avenues will be discussed later on. Thank you.
That brings us to the end of our question and answer segment. We have been blessed with a visit from the chair of the Disaster Mitigation Council, the Honorable Vincent Byron, our Attorney General. Welcome. I want to thank all of you for joining us for today's NEOC COVID-19 briefing. Of course, we continue to appreciate the very fact that you are paying attention to what is happening with the management of the COVID-19 pandemic here in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. It is extremely important that you continue to be vigilant. Do not let the guard down, and continue to practice all that you need to practice with respect to adhering to the protocols that have been put in place for our safety, our health. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. We do not want an outbreak and then we say, well, now we know what an outbreak is like. Nobody wants it. So therefore we have to do everything, all the preventative measures we have to adhere to. I want to thank, of course, the persons who continue to do all that they can, the National COVID-19 Task Force, for their hard work in ensuring that our Federation is kept safe. I want to thank all the frontline workers, the people who work at the airport, those at the hotels and so on, who continue to adhere to the protocols and to ensure that we keep safe. The persons who work here at NEMA, there are persons working behind the scene, doing the data entry, collecting information with respect to people coming into St. Kitts and Nevis and so on, verifying information, and they are playing a very important role. The media is also playing an extremely important role, because information in any sort of a crisis or pandemic or whatever it is, disaster, is extremely important in the management of that disaster. We continue to thank ZIZ for being here every Wednesday and providing that service to us, and all the media houses who continue to partner with us. We thank Mrs. Christmas Jacobs for her service of sign language. That is very, very important for a very special population among us. We thank Dr. Wilkinson, Dr. Laws, Superintendent Henry, Vesta Southwell, and Attorney General, Honorable Vincent Byron. We thank all of you. And next week we will be back for another NEOC COVID-19 weekly briefing on Wednesday. Thank you very much, and until then, take care.
Is on.